It's time for All Hands on Tech.
Climb on board as we explore all the amazing things happening in Nova Scotia's tech sector. Each episode, we'll chat with local experts to uncover the secrets of what makes Nova Scotia the best place for collaboration, innovation, and creativity.
All Hands on Tech is proudly produced by Digital Nova Scotia, the industry association for Nova Scotia's growing tech sector. Welcome back to All Hands on Tech. I'm Ashley Field.
And I'm Jenna. We're super excited to welcome today's guests, a company that has been part of the IT world since the year 2000.
Avanade was created by two industry giants, Accenture and Microsoft, with one goal in mind: to deliver innovative services and solutions to enterprises worldwide using the Microsoft platform. And what's super exciting is that Avanade recently expanded here to Nova Scotia.
So today we're joined by Matthew in studio. He's the director of Avanade's North American Engineering Hub. And we've also got Andrea joining us virtually from Toronto. She's Avanade's Director of Business HR for Canada. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Super excited to be chatting with you guys today. I guess before we get too far, Matt, I want to start with you. We did give a brief overview of what Avanade does, but for folks listening, tell us, what you do and what you do for your clients.
Absolutely. So I work for our North American Engineering Hubs, as you mentioned. Our engineering hubs are a little bit more of a technology agnostic group. We believe in everything within the Microsoft Cloud Azure ecosystem, which these days could really be anything. So we build and solve really complex problems for our clients that typically involve technology stacks through mobile apps, enterprise web, core back-end API development, and we come in bringing our architecture and subject matter expertise, and through the problems of our clients, we form agile pods and teams to solve those problems through the latest and greatest of Microsoft and all the technology stacks that we have at our disposal within our engineering hubs. And I moved out to Halifax to start that practice and that hub as we integrate into the community and grow relationships and partnerships and hire and start to really get embedded in the Halifax and Nova Scotia tech ecosystem.
Very cool. And so you were here, I guess, at the beginning of the year. And how has that been going so far here in Nova Scotia?
Amazing. I moved out here in January. I made the drive from Toronto to Halifax in the dead of winter.
Good for you.
Which was tough, but I needed to have my golden retriever Ferris there with me, and he wasn't going to get on the plane. I couldn't get him a seat. So the drive was immediately a ton of fun, an absolute blast, and then lots of romping in the snow and running around as soon as we got to Halifax. And now that the weather has warmed up and we get to go swimming and hiking and having fun on the water, and Point Pleasant Park is, I think, our favorite place we've ever been. So it's really been phenomenal. And Avanade has thrived through some of the partnerships and relationships that we have here. We've hired some amazing people. So getting settled and really looking forward to the future, because it's really amazing things happening here.
Amazing. Nova Scotia seems like the perfect place for a dog.
Yeah.
Probably also a person, but mainly a dog.
Most.
All right. So before we get more into Avanade, we are going to start out with a little rapid fire question series just to get to know you guys a little bit better.
I will start us off. Okay, this one, I'm going to start with you maybe, Andrea.
Sure.
Slack message or phone call?
Phone call.
Phone call. What about you?
The correct answer to that one is a Microsoft Teams message.
Okay. Second question. Matt, we'll go back to you. What was your first job ever?
Oh, wow. My first job ever. I was a terrible babysitter. My first job as a babysitter, it was Saturday mornings. I was always tired and exhausted, and I didn't do the best job. The kids would play video games, and my eyes would start to get heavy around 1:00. And that was the first gig. It didn't last too long though.
That's fair. I think that counts. That's most babysitters.
Yeah.
You did great.
Yeah, exactly. Andrea, what about you? What was your first job?
I worked in the kitchen of a nursing home. So I did dishes and I served food. Sometimes I'd find teeth in cups, but it was a great job.
That's a very unique experience.
Definitely. I love it. Okay, and the last rapid fire question we have. What's the best piece of advice you've ever given someone? Andrea, let's start with you.
Oh my goodness.
I know it's a tough one.
Best piece of advice that I've ever given somebody would be to, be yourself. Just be yourself. it'll take you the distance by being yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's great.
I love that one. That's a good one. Matt, what about you?
My best piece of advice, I would say, is a simple word: is action. Whenever you're feeling you don't know what to do, you're kind of stuck, you're in that land of too many options, you just have to do something. Always act, always towards better things, always keep moving, and iterate and be agile once you hear those consequences, but act.
Right.
Cool. I really like that one.
Yes,
I'm a huge
great
advocate of
advice.
just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep moving forward.
Just keep moving. Exactly. Okay, so we have some more hard-hitting questions, let's say. Who do we want to start with? I'll start. Okay. Avanade has really made a name for themselves when it comes to company culture. Can you tell us a little bit more about why that's been a key focus for your team?
Absolutely. Andrea, you kick that one off.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, culture for us is about creating a work environment that people thrive in and want to come to every day. So, we focus on a couple things. I mean, inclusion and diversity is huge for us. So whether that's ethnic diversity, gender diversity, or intergenerational diversity, we have a big focus on that. So we've created employee groups that people can be members of, so they can find their people. We've created targets, so we're measuring our diversity, which is really important if you're ever going to make any progress in that. And on the inclusion side, we're always looking for opportunities, especially, coming out of COVID or still in COVID, wherever we are, to get people feeling a sense of belonging. We've gone through a huge hiring blitz over the last year. We've got a lot of new people. So really helping them find their way, find their friends at work, find their comfort is really, 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 really important to our culture. Well-being is another big focus for us, for the Avanade culture, with COVID and with us moving to a hybrid type work, which we kind of already had hybrid, but now we're officially hybrid. People are having trouble switching off. They're having trouble trying to find time during the day to recharge. So that's a big focus for us. We heard from our employees in our employee survey that people were having trouble with that. So trying to find ways to make people more flexible in the way they work, putting into place things like alternative work week, which allows people to work, 4 days a week or 4.5 days of the week, is another big thing. And then another big focus for culture and is corporate citizenship. So, our younger employees especially really want to work somewhere where they're feeling they're not just working for the man and for the big paycheck. They want to be contributing to society, to the environment, to whatever they're doing. So, we put a big emphasis on those types of things because we want people to really enjoy their workplace and where they're working.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I will say, when I was doing some research for this episode and I was looking at your website, you can tell just when you go to your website that you're very people-driven. Lots of photos of employees on there, talking about what it's going to be like for them when they work there and how positive it is. So I really appreciate that. Do you have anything to add to that, Matt?
Yeah, I think Andrea summed up the theme of our culture and the types of people and what we have here and how supportive we are in our environment. I'll add that, in Halifax, we're a new company here. We've only been here since January. And culture is one of those things that, in my opinion, it sort of starts at the bottom, but is nurtured from the top. So being able to be here and bring in our first couple hires and talk to them about, hey, what do you guys want this to look like? How do you want to feel? Who do you want to see here? What are types of activities? What is the reporting structure? And really engaging and listening, and then taking that message back to someone like Andrea and the Avanade HR leadership team, and watching it be able to reflect their values is incredibly important. And Andrea touched on the employee survey. And one of the things that I'm incredibly passionate about and proud of Avanade for is, it's one thing to do the survey. It's another to then have quarterly town halls or updates to see the progress made against the survey responses. And Avanade is so good at that. And it makes my job easier as someone who's hiring and growing talent and growing capability out here. And, our retention is through the roof and people are making referrals. And when you do all those right things, you kind of start to snowball, and it's really exciting. And that's what we have here.
It's super exciting. And yeah, like you said, communication is key with the whole team.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea, you kind of touched on this already when you mentioned kind of the younger generations, but in today's unprecedented and unique office environment, there's often many workplaces that have different generations working together. What does that mean for today's employer?
I think what that really means is, satisfying people at work is about understanding their expectations. And all these different generations that we have, whether they're boomers or Generation X, they all come from a different background. They have different values. They have different life experiences, and they have different expectations. So as leaders, and as companies, we have to stop expecting that people are just like me, because people have different expectations for things. So, if you look at boomers, they were born in a time of expansion. Everyone was having babies. They really felt like they deserved something better. Generation X, there's a lot less of us. That's me. We kind of were born at a time when like birth control came into place. So, there's less of us. We also had a lot of turmoil during the time. Like there was the Cold War. I remember being a kid and being worried about nuclear bombs, that sort of thing. So we're a little bit more about like keeping it real and being authentic. And then you look at the millennials and like their life was like a buffet, anything is possible. You can choose to do what you want to do. They want to change the world, all that kind of stuff. And then we have this new generation of people coming in. And their generation has seen a little bit more turmoil again, right? We've had 2 economic downturns. We have like racial tensions. They're more angsty than the other generations. They're coping and they're hoping, as people might say that about them. So for companies like us, we have to figure out what their expectations are, because if the expectations don't meet what the reality is, that's where the problem is. And we have to be flexible and learn how to make things happen for everybody, and not just like think about, okay, I'm generation X, like just get it done, So I think it has big implications for companies.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That flexibility that ultimately offers you to kind of pull out the best of every employee, no matter where they're coming from.
Totally.
How difficult is that, managing people with different expectations of what a work-life balance kind of looks like?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think that's where you see it a lot, is in like work-life balance, right? So, whether or not, like when you look at the older generation, boomers, they're used to like being in the office, and like they want to have a corner office and a bonus, and they expect you to, they have expectations of, working a lot, because they maybe grew up in a generation where, they worked and maybe they had somebody at home supporting them, right? So, whereas our millennials, life is not all about work. So, they want to have that flexibility. They want to be able to shut off at the end of the day. They also want to get promoted a lot. So, we
all want to get promoted a lot.
That's true.
But like, I just think, from a way you work, and even the way you communicate, right? So someone that's a Generation Y, they're used to like Snapchatting, and they have very short attention spans. So they don't want to see an email this long. Whereas somebody in my generation, hey, I like a long email. So all these things have to be taken into consideration when you're looking at how people are motivated, how they want to be communicated to, and how they want to work.
Yeah.
So
it is difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but I think one of the things that Avanade and we have an incredible talent acquisition team, and one of the pieces that we always talk about within the interview process, whether it's through the recruiters or a final interview or a technical interview throughout the process, is, we of course want the diverse skill set, and we want to celebrate diversity and inclusion, but you also want to have people with similar values.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have our management structure is super interesting at Avanade. We have something, you don't really have like a manager, you have a career advisor. And that person is supposed to play the role of mentor and coach, technical advisor, and we're consulting. So you might be on a project, and that project lead, while you're on that project, is sort of, the boss. They got to make sure things get done. But in the background, you have this career advisor who you should be meeting with either weekly or bi-weekly to talk about how you're moving towards your career goals, and what does the future look like, and what are the next projects, what technologies are you learning, and what new certifications are you going through. And it's embracing a different type of mentality of what work could be.
Interesting.
And if you hire leaders who aren't looking to necessarily micromanage or be the boss, and then you hire people who have really strong attitude and aptitude, it kind of all just meshes together really nicely. And I think that's something we strive for.
Is that career leader always the same person? Does that follow you through the different project changes, or does that change along with that?
Your career advisor sticks with you long term.
Cool.
I think it's important sometimes to potentially get new career advisors throughout your career to get new opinions, new thoughts, new ways of thinking. But typically, people get pretty attached to their career advisors, and they want to stick with them. So, it's a different model and different way of looking at it. It should be their trusted advisor, their trusted partner throughout their career, and hopefully they form a relationship that equals that. And we talk a lot at Avanade about a growth mindset. And sometimes you don't have the perfect career advisor. Sometimes they think very differently than you. Okay, well, what opportunities does that lead for growth, and how can that benefit, and how can that work together? So the model is conducive to making sure that people are growing in such a way that aligns to their values and their goals, not only for their career, but as Andrea was talking about, their personal life and their work-life balance too.
It sounds super innovative, because sometimes it can be really hard to change structures that are so integrated into society, like how we operate as businesses. So it's super refreshing to hear that you guys do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, you actually answered my question. As you were both talking about, I was kind of curious how being so flexible worked from a managerial level. And as you just described, it's not the typical kind of structure. So
yeah, it's not. We have talent communities, which allows people who have a certain interest in either specific technologies or areas of consulting and management to sort of belong to a group of people who are doing similar things. But then within that talent community, you have that different structure of the career advisor rather than the boss, the manager.
Very cool.
And I guess we have one other question. And you're here in Halifax talking to us right now. So as a global company, tell us why you chose to expand here to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, we ran a pretty extensive research study through one of our partners, and we were looking for up-and-coming, thriving tech hubs across North America that were growing, that had a lot of potential for new grads, both college and university, that had a strong interest in the tech scene, that weren't necessarily as competitive as some of the Silicon Valley, Toronto, Vancouver markets, but we know that they're going to get there, and we can see it on the horizon. And we wanted to be a part of whatever city we chose. We wanted to be a part of helping that city get there and contribute to it and be a part of it and kind of grassroots the whole thing with the exploding scene. And Halifax scored in the top 3, I believe it was, in North America for top cities that were really growing and had a huge tech scene that was on the verge of a boom. And we booked a couple trips out to a couple different cities. We did a little bit of a tour, and the tour, shout out to some of the folks over at NSBI. Chandra did a phenomenal job guiding us around the city and introducing us to some key players, and we were blown away. I have to admit, I had some unconscious bias. I didn't know what I was walking into in Halifax. Thought it was going to be this tiny little port town. I was blown away almost immediately. The diversity here, the passion here. I had no idea that Nova Scotia had the most amount of universities and colleges in Canada, not per capita, total, in all of Canada. It's a highly educated, passionate, techie city. It's one of Canada's best kept secrets. So when I came out here, and then Sean Simmons, my executive, he sort of turned to me and said, "This is pretty great here." And he said, "How would you feel about relocating and moving if we were to do this?" And I got on the phone and I called my fiance up and I said, "We got to get you on a plane because this place is phenomenal." And we got her on a plane. I was here Monday, she was here Thursday. We spent the weekend.
Wow.
And we were looking up real estate agents. We were seeing how do we do it. We were planning logistics, and it moved really fast because it was really obvious to see the potential here.
Love to hear it. I felt the same way when I came here for the first time too. So it sounds like it met your expectations then.
Oh yeah. And then some.
Yeah. So did you used to work with Andrea then?
Yes,
Were you in
Andrea
the
and I
same-
go way back.
Way back.
We've worked together in Toronto for about 8 years now.
So Andrea, how do you feel about him moving away?
It's funny because like when we were talking about opening up in Halifax, I was like, oh, I love a good East Coaster. Like, come on. And Matt, even though he grew up in Toronto, he is like an East Coaster. So there was like nobody better to go to the East Coast than Matt. He's friendly, he's helpful, he's like the type of person that has people over. He's like, he's always visiting his sisters and stuff. He's amazing. So although I was sad to have Matt go because he's a force in the office and he's a fun person to joke around with in the office, I couldn't think of a better place for him to land.
We were also neighbors, so we actually
wow.
lived like 2 blocks away
Wow.
from each other in Toronto, and we would bump into each other walking the dogs and that sort of thing too. So
Yeah.
I definitely miss working and bumping into Andrea. But Andrea, come on out to the East Coast.
Yeah,
was
come
gonna
on out.
say.
I will. I'd love to.
And if not, at least we always have teams, right?
There you go.
Right.
Right. Well, it sounds like you made a major pivot during COVID. But how did COVID result in kind of Avanade changing over the course of the pandemic, and what did that look like for you?
I have a lot of thoughts, but Andrea, I'll let you take that one
sure.
first.
I mean, I think the first thing that really one of the first big changes that we made was the flexible work arrangement. So allowing our employees to work on alternative work week, which is basically work your 40-hour work week in whatever arrangement you want to do. So for instance, I work Monday to Thursday, I take Fridays off. It's a game changer. Like for me, I'm a single mother. So, when I was working 5 days a week, I get into the weekend and I'd be like, oh, I got to clean the house. I got to do groceries. I got to do all this stuff. And there's no time for fun. But now I got this Friday afternoon, I can get the house clean. I can do the laundry. It didn't work out as well as I thought it was going to be because I pictured myself having like boozy lunches with ladies, but it was during COVID. So that did not work out for me. But the clean house was good. So that was a big major change for us. And just that like realization about like people's well-being and how much they were working and not separating work from life. And I think this whole focus on well-being has been good for everybody because everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's talking about it. And we're trying to, instill it into our culture. I mean, it's a process, right? You don't get there. You don't go from being like a high-performing consulting company working 60-hour work weeks to, a Zen yoga studio where you shut off at 5 o'clock and go and do yoga. But the process is happening. We're getting there, and I think COVID was a really good way to start that off and to like get that sort of concept of well-being really worked into the culture of Avanade.
Yeah, I think well-being for me is the key word there too. So a quick story. So when COVID initially hit, I was managing our Canada Experience Design department. So visual design, UX designer, service design. And they're a very social group. We used to go out for drinks every Thursday. We used to have design thinking sessions every Tuesday in office where we brought lunch in. And we went from being this incredibly collaborative, tight-knit group to all being stuck in our respective apartments, houses, condos, wherever we were. And we had some people on the team who really missed the social interaction. And then we had some people on the team who had kids, had animals, had their own responsibilities, taking care of parents. People were sick. Like, let's not forget,
Yeah.
a lot of people were very sick. And to be able to shine a spotlight on well-being like Avanade and Andrea and the HR team did went so far. And I remember I was really worried about the social element of my team. So we're going to have virtual code names and we're going to do a virtual happy hour. And I just kept trying, action. I just kept trying to do stuff to try to keep people happy and make sure that they were okay. And one of the leads on our team sort of took me aside after we did one of the employee surveys. And she's like, Matt, I think right now less is more. I understand that you're trying to make sure that we're all happy and that we're all okay at work, stuck in our apartments, but it's hard right now. And you keep throwing activities at us. Please, can we find a way, talk to the team, let's see if this is actually helping our well-being. And it wasn't. In an effort to make sure everyone was happy, we were burdening them. And I think Avanade really started listening to their employees. What does well-being look like for you? And then we pivoted to that. And the shifted work week is an amazing example of that, and the remote culture that we now fully embrace. So the way that we have put a spotlight on well-being and being flexible is lessons learned from COVID that now, reverberate all throughout Avanade.
Yeah, and that constant pivoting too. I think what was needed at the beginning of the pandemic, when people were really afraid and, like you said, really already burdened with kind of life in general, and then what was needed later once it had kind of dragged on and we got more used to the process, and then how everyone's adjusted their mindset to the less like grind after the fact. So like every stage along, and going to continue that way of us readjusting and what do people need and what do they want from us. It sounds like you're doing a great job with it.
Thank you. We're trying.
That's important.
Okay, I think we have one last question, and I'm going to ask it to you first, Andrea. Can you tell us about a mentor that you've had that has really impacted you?
Sure. I think, so the mentor that I had, so Matt and I both come from a startup that was acquired by Avanade. And so, when I started, we were 60 people. I was the only HR person. I was, the HR director for the entire time I was there. But about 5 years, just like before we were acquired, we hired a man named John, and he became our head of our head of operations and finance. And he came in and he was kind of tough on me because I'm I can be a bit of a scatterbrain. I didn't have a lot of organizational skills, and he was tough on me. Like, he taught me how to organize myself and how to think strategically and how to really operate as an HR leader, which I would have never gotten had he not been hired. He was a real inspiration to me. Like, he was hard on me, but he was an awesome person, and he always gave very direct feedback, and I love that. Maybe it's because I'm Generation X. We like our feedback, be authentic and direct. But he's the reason why I am, the effective HR leader that I am today. If I'd never met him, I'd still be the disaster I was back then. So I really, really appreciate him. And his name is John.
Well, I hope he's listening.
And Matt knows John too. He was probably tough on him too.
He was.
Does anyone stand out for you, Matt?
It's a really good question because, and then even listening to Andrea answer the question, I'm so lucky. I've had so many amazing leaders that I've gotten to work with, especially in the last 8 or 9 years since I joined the startup, and then now what is Avanade. Andrea knows I love telling the story, and she loves chiming in about it too. When I first started at this startup, I struggled hard. I was in our HR and talent acquisition program, and I could not make a hire to save my life. But I cared a lot, and I tried, and I guess some people took notice and saw that. And I used to go home and be like, one more day, and they haven't let me go. This is a miracle happening.
We were rooting for him. We're like, is he gonna hire somebody? Come on, Maddie.
And my lead, my boss at the time, was a woman named Monica, and she's still with the organization as well. But she taught me a lot about patience and transparent communication and listening. And I'm pretty decisive and have pretty strong opinions, and so does she. But she was always really able to stop and slow down and listen when it came time to make important decisions. And that was something that it took a while for me to learn and grow with. Monica showing the patience that she had with me and embracing, I guess, sort of the attitude and aptitude that I already touched on previously, sort of became a model for what do I look like when I'm going to hire people? What types of questions do I want to ask? What do I do if people are underperforming? And those are things that sort of sit in the back of my head as well. And much like Andrea, I was not an administrative guru either, and there was a lot of patience and understanding and learning there as well. But at the same time, Monica, out-of-the-box thinker. She sent me, and I moved to New York for about a year, and then I went to Raleigh, North Carolina for a little bit, all because we just had a couple wacky ideas together, and we wanted to try some stuff. So
very cool.
It was a really fun start to that chapter of my career and having a lead like that.
Coincidentally, Monica's also my work wife because we've worked together for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can
Sounds
feel
very,
the
like,
close
tight-knit.
knit.
Yeah.
We should have had her on here too.
Right?
Yeah.
It would have been a disaster. No.
You're definitely gonna have to share the podcast with all these people that you're
Exactly.
like hyping up. All right. So, parting words. We're giving you your soapbox. Stand up. What's exciting? What's coming up? What are you excited for in the next year, the next couple months at Avanade? What's going on?
Sure. I'll start with Halifax, and then Andrea can sort of take the bird's eye view of Avanade.
Sounds good.
We're growing like crazy here. So our group in Halifax, in our North American engineering hubs, we service accounts and clients all across North America. So we have a wide variety and range of projects, different technology stacks, everything from data and AI and machine learning to back-end development to front-end and mobile apps. And there's so many different cool things we're doing for some really impressive big clients. And using some fun emerging technology along the way as well. I'm super excited to see our team continue to grow and continue to hire and turn into a force. I'm kind of secretly competing with our Toronto and Vancouver offices. I want to surpass them and grow in a big way. We have some really amazing partnerships with some of the institutions here. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see the people come in and grow and give back. We've given a bit of an opportunity to some of our people to engage in things like the social committee, and I'm going axe throwing next week with my team, and we're going with another startup that is sitting next to us. We're in the pier down on the port, so we have a very cool office space. My dog comes into the office every day, which is always fun. So just the growth and the opportunities and the fun things and the dinners and the axes and all the good stuff that's coming, I think it's very exciting for Halifax, for Nova Scotia, and for our engineering hubs as a whole as we continue to bring in new clients and new projects. So
yeah,
I'm looking to see the new faces come in as well.
Very excited. What kind of talent are you looking for?
A lot of software engineering, a lot of tech talent. We also do a lot of space and delivery, so Scrum and business analysts and product owners. But the bulk of it is sort of those technology stack software engineers and developers that I mentioned.
Very cool.
Okay.
All right, Andrea. What about in Toronto?
So I don't know, work is just really fun right now for me. I feel like we're just doing a lot of really interesting, cutting edge things for our people at Avanade. Some of the things that I was mentioning from an I&D perspective, from a well-being perspective, corporate citizenship. So I'm just really having a good time and, looking forward to unleashing some of these big initiatives over the next couple months and, just seeing how they land and just making sure that Avanade continues to be, a place where people want to come to every day.
Yeah, I think want to come to every day is the key, because we don't make them. We're very flexible. Like I said, they don't have to come into the office, but we want them to want to come into the office. So I think that's a big piece, and it's what I'm seeing here. We've definitely hired some people who are happy to stay home in their homes and code away or contribute on their client phone calls, and then we have people who come in every day into the office because they get to eat lunch together and they get to
see
if they
your
want
dog.
See your dog.
see the
I was
dog.
going to
Yeah.
say the same thing.
A golden retriever always helps the
Yeah,
case.
for sure. Yeah. I'm going to come visit. We're just up the street, so.
Perfect.
Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing things, and we're so happy that you're here in Nova Scotia as well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Everyone in the entire province is the best host I've ever met, so it's good.
Love
True
it.
testimony to the Maritimes. All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on, having you join us virtually, Andrea.
Thank you.
This was fun. Thanks for having
Yeah, it
us.
was great. Nice to see you, Matt.
Yeah, you too. You look good.
Yeah, you
Thanks for tuning in to All Hands on Tech. Interested in learning more? Visit us on our website at www.digitalnovascotia.com. We'll see you next time.
This
has been
a Podstarter
production.